Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Bass, and welcome back to everyone who's already subscribers to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews with MMA fighters, including the one coming at you right now. First time guest of the show, going into his third MMA fight, and he's going to be fighting for 247 Fighting Championships, Brawl in the Burgh 20. Val Caruso. Val, welcome to the show.
Hi, Luke. How's it going tonight?
Always an honor to have somebody on the show, particularly for the first time. Sorry it's taken a couple fights to get you on, but I appreciate you making time. 7 days away from the fight, exactly a week out from Brawl in the Burgh 20. How are you feeling? How's training been going at Rival MMA?
I feel fantastic. Everything's been going good. A lot of hard cardio work as usual. A lot of conditioning. Like to focus on that a lot primarily. So everything's been going really good. I feel really solid, really good.
That is wonderful. Your last time in the MMA cage for 247, I believe, yes, was against Cam Smith back in October of 2022, a little over a year ago, and you got a win in decision. So you're coming off that, which is great. Before we get into your matchup with Max Jarrell, which is an exciting fight, you're 1-1. He's 1-0. You're from Rival MMA in Pittsburgh. He's from a pretty well-known Pittsburgh gym in Stout, Pittsburgh. But let's go back. I haven't had you on the show before, so let's talk about what got you into MMA training in the first place. Did you do sports prior that kind of led you to MMA, or did you kind of get into martial arts without having like a football or wrestling background? What's your story that got you into MMA?
So it was really through wrestling because I started wrestling back, I think, in 8th, ninth grade when I was about 14, 15. And through wrestling, it really sort of evolved through that because that was back when like Fight Club Pittsburgh was popular. And I had a classmate who I wrestled with that trained there sort of like on and off, who sort of recommended it to me like, I think my junior year of school, like 11th grade, maybe 10th grade. So it's sort of evolved from that. And then I took some time off because of college.
Sure. And what that makes a lot of sense. So you do have some wrestling background, which is a great connection. What got you connected specifically to Rival? How long have you been there? What are some of the coaches? What's it been like training with them? And do they have any other fighters that are active in the 247 scene, or are you kind of their main active fighter?
So the way I got involved through them is they actually started training out of the bodybuilding gym I went to at the time. Because after I sort of stopped MMA and all that, I sort of got into bodybuilding through a powerhouse out on Babcock, out in that area. And that's where they started training out of. So they sort of like asked me to come in because I was hitting the heavy bag one time and they asked me to come in and train. So it sort of just came from that.
Yeah,
Really.
makes a lot of sense. Now that you're fighting at featherweight 145, I would guess that your bodybuilding days are behind you because there's sort of a different physique between bodybuilding and MMA, although there is somewhat of a crossover. When did you start seriously training? Obviously, your 2 MMA fights. This will be your third fight and at least one Muay Thai fight. So now you've been taking fights for a while. When did you really start dedicating yourself to it?
I'd say about 2020 when the first lockdown sort of ended from COVID. Because when all the gyms and everything sort of closed, it sort of made me take a break from bodybuilding and everything. And I sort of took a hiatus, started going back to the gyms when the lockdown lifted. And that's sort of how I met Mark Leibach, our coach over at Rival, and everybody there. And Drew Landefeld fights for us too.
Oh,
So, yeah, so
there you
that's how I
go.
met all of
Yeah,
them through that.
makes a
So I
lot of
met
sense.
all of them through that.
Well, great. And you're representing a gym that's in Pittsburgh, fighting in the Pittsburgh area with the Murraysville Center coming up February 22nd. What was it like getting your first MMA win now, a little over about a year and 4 or 5 months ago? What was that like for you back the last time you fought for 247?
It was exciting for sure, all the way back in October. I remember really, really training real hard for it because I had a fight prior to that, but it was really just sort of a grappling expedition, my very first MMA fight. There wasn't any sort of like striking on the feet or
Mm.
anything too involved like that. So that was really my fight with Cam Smith. That was really my sort of real like sort of get into it with MMA. So I remember training a lot harder. Like I told you way back when you interviewed me after, I focused a lot on grappling at the
Uh,
time because that was my biggest issue in my first fight with Peyton Hearn was his grappling was superior. So I decided to focus a lot on that more, even though I came from a wrestling background. My jujitsu wasn't always
mm.
up to par with where my wrestling was. So it was, I remember that camp was a lot of grappling focus, a lot of jujitsu focus.
Yeah, and that's great that you've been able to add on your skills. You fought back in November. It looks like you fought for stout fights. Was that a Muay Thai fight? What was that like for you?
Yeah.
Just focusing on the stand up.
Oh, that was fun for sure. As much as I like to grapple, I really like to strike a lot more. So for sure, getting into a Muay Thai fight was a lot of fun. I just remember going out there, and I don't, I was never really nervous for that one leading up because I'd had two MMA fights prior to that, so the nerves weren't there as much. And going out there and just knowing I'm going to be striking was a lot of fun. So I really just went out there and had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and obviously there's a striking component in MMA. There's still the grappling, the reverse wrestling. Clearly, if somebody's trying to take you down, you're trying to stand up. Uh, with your with your record, I believe with a win, it the way Pennsylvania is, you have to have a record of either 2-1 or 3-0 in order to fight advanced amateur. You're 1-1, so a win over Max Jarrell, if it goes that way, would put you at a position where you would be able to fight advanced amateurs. Is that something that you like down the road without shin guards, a longer fight, 3 minutes and ground and pound? Or is it really just about focusing in on the next week and then figuring it out after that?
Oh no, I've for sure been looking at the advanced amateur component after this fight if I do win. Because that's really my last fight with Cam Smith. There was a lot of opportunity to do a lot of that ground and pound in that fight because it went to the ground and I was on top a lot. So
Right.
that was really like an opportunity looking at that in the future. Like that to the head ground and pound makes a huge difference. And the shin pads, as thin as they look, they do get in the way a lot when it comes to transitioning, doing leg
Sure.
stuff, things like that, leg pummeling, all that sort of stuff. So I definitely would look forward to like getting rid of those shin pads in future fights.
Makes a lot of sense. Cool that you're already considering like how it would benefit you. That's part of the mental game of fighting is sort of planning things out. What are your thoughts specifically on Max Jarrell? He's 1-0. You're 1-1. He's training at Stout, which is also a Pittsburgh gym, Pittsburgh versus Pittsburgh, which is super cool. What are your thoughts on him and any predictions that you have of how you think this fight will go?
I'm just excited that he looks like he really wants to strike because I saw his last fight for 247. He was all on the feet except for maybe a takedown in the end of the first round, I think. So I'm really excited to just go out there and really throw with someone. Like shoot for takedowns and all that, but I really like to go out there and throw. And it really looks like he wants to do that. So I'm really excited for that. I don't really have a prediction going in because he looks like a very competent striker for sure. So I can really see it going either way. I'm just excited to go out there and put on a hell of a show, hoping we go out there and just both throw on each other really.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. MMA can be unpredictable even for the fighters. I've had fighters come on the show kind of say they want to do one thing and another thing happens in the fight because it is a fight with multiple variables. And
Oh yeah.
but it does make sense. I do remember Max looking for a debut because he's only fought once for a debut fighter to be very confident and comfortable on his feet. Understandably, a lot of wrestler backgrounds with good jiu-jitsu. They don't really, like you mentioned your first fight, really no striking at all. Like I've seen amateur MMA fights with really no striking on the feet whatsoever, basically a grappling exchange and then a wrestling exchange and down to the ground. So should be very entertaining. The fact that you are from Pittsburgh and his gym is from Pittsburgh, I think will have the crowd very entertained. How many people
Sure.
do you think, how big of a support from Rival do you think you'll have there next week in Murraysville?
Oh, we'll have a good show out for sure because we have people that train, cross train with us. We cross train a few different places. So I'm sure we'll have a good turnout for support.
Well, that'll be really, really exciting. It always makes a difference. I think, being there, doing commentary when somebody walks out and you get that crowd pop, which is a wrestling term, but you get that crowd experience, that crowd reaction, which will be super, super exciting. Overall, what would you like to see in the progress because obviously everybody wants to get a win, but what would you like to see in the progress of your fight game come Saturday?
I'd like to see my striking. Really want to show off my striking that I put on because I've been working on that a lot because my last fight in November, I saw a lot of things I could work on. So I'm really hoping to put my striking on display.
Well, I hope it goes the way you'd like to. I know really the MMA fans that come for 247 because it's grown. People have been watching the fight game now that they're about ready to celebrate their uh, fifth. Yeah, 2019, 19-5. There you go. Look, my brain's working. Early April, I think April 6th range was the date of the first. Of course, COVID took a break, but 5 years. And in those 5 years, I think a lot of the fans have been able to watch fighters. It used to be, and still people love a throwdown striking contest, but it used to be that that's kind of all MMA fans were excited about was sort of you go way back to UFC, Tank Abbott and guys that had no ground game. It's exciting to see that you have ground game. But yeah, I think a great jiu-jitsu match in MMA can be very exciting. A great wrestling match, a great striking match, but it is always fun if two strikers want to make it more of a Muay Thai match within MMA. Can't wait to see what happens. That's a must watch fight. The entire card. You're not a debuter. Your opponent's not a debuter, so you have some experience. There's some debut versus debut, all the way up to an amateur title fight, all the way up to pro fights. I think yourself included, it's stacked. Both the debuters, all the way up to the advanced and pros. It's just a stacked card. That's the hats off to the coaches, to the gyms, to the trainers in the area, as well as, of course, the legendary matchmaker Jim Mooney, really putting together an awesome card. Is there any other fight on the card when you're not fighting that you're going to be paying attention to once your fight's over?
Well, I'm going to be watching my teammate Drew's. I don't know where his fight lands on the card. I haven't exactly looked at the order yet, but that's going to be one for sure. And Lucas Siebert makes his pro debut there too, so that's going to
Correct.
be one to watch for sure.
Drew Landeville, your teammate, will be later in the card. They did announce that it's up there. So if anybody wants to go back and watch the combat sports, the 247 combat sports podcast that did yesterday on all of their platforms, they actually do the number. They actually list the number out as they go through and do previews. But I know, given the fact that he's fighting an advanced amateur fight, you're fighting a novice fight. The way they do it is they always put all the novices, the advanced amateurs. There's a few advanced amateurs. In fact, I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 advanced amateur fights, if I'm counting that correctly, which is a lot of advanced amateur fights. Drew would be in there because he's an advanced amateur fight. And then the advanced amateur fights will be capped off by the title fight, would be my guess, since the title fight would come last, and then the two pro fights. So you should definitely be able to watch your teammate Drew fight, as well as the title fight at 155, which I think is super exciting. Undefeated Cowboy Eddie versus undefeated Hoot Lee. And then you mentioned Lucas Siebert. What exposure do you have to Lucas? Have you trained with him or cross-trained? How are you connected to Root?
Just seeing things on Facebook here and there, things
Sure.
that Drew posts, things that other people post. Those little bits of exposure you get on there.
Yeah,
But he's an exciting fighter to watch, so I'll be looking at that one too.
he is an exciting fighter to watch. He is the current, well, I guess he won't have it anymore once he fights pro, but he's the current 145-pound amateur champ, although he fought mostly at bantamweight, but bumped up to featherweight to win the belt. And that's, of course, your weight. I believe that's your weight division. Yeah, you're 145, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so super exciting. I think his pro fight will be at 35. The whole card is stacked. Always exciting to hear what fighters are looking forward to. And there's a lot of other really deep, experienced fighters on that card. It's been an honor having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on. You've been listening to Luke Payson with MMA Fancast with Val Caruso. Thanks so much. See you in a week at Brawl in the Burgh 20 for 247 Fighting Championships, February 24th at the, almost said it wrong, at Murraysville Sports Zone. Thanks so much for coming on, Val. You take care. Best skills to you in your fight. Can't wait to see you on the 24th. Thank you.